Hello and welcome to the Dream Team Professor podcast. My name is Scott, and in this episode, we're looking at the top players to target in Gameweek 34 Sun Dream Team. Now, Gameweek 34 is a Friday deadline, 6:30 p.m. So don't get caught out by that one. It's been a little while since we've had a Friday deadline. We've got just 4 game weeks remaining now for the rest of the season. It could be 5 if Arsenal do make it to the Champions League final after yesterday's 1-0 loss. That's looking a little bit less likely, but still could happen in Game Week 38. That game would be put into double game week this week. So Game Week 34, we've got the second legs in Europe. So Arsenal, United, Spurs and Chelsea all doubling this week. If we look at longer term fixture planning, so I'm going to highlight some of the teams that could have extra fixtures. So Arsenal will have 5 currently, or 6 if they reach that Champions League final. That would be put in Game Week 38. United have 5 fixtures remaining, which will become 6 if they get to the Europa League final. That will be scheduled for Game Week 36. Spurs, pretty much the same. So 5 would be 6 if they get to the Europa final. Again, could be 36, could even be against United. Chelsea, 5 or 6 fixtures, depending on whether they reach the Conference League final. Now, I'm recording this on Wednesday evening, so we don't yet know the results in the Europa League matches. City and Palace. Now, they have now both reached the FA Cup final. That one is for sure. So they will now have 5 fixtures with that FA Cup final taking place in Game Week 36. What we don't know, though, is in Game Week 36, City and Palace both have a weekend Premier League fixture scheduled. Now, that is going to clash with the FA Cup final, so will have to be moved. It could move sort of forward a week, so into Game Week 35 and make a double game week for those teams. Or it could remain in Game Week 36 and become a midweek fixture after the FA Cup final. So we're still waiting to find out how that will land. I did see a rumour on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it today, that the City match could be moving into Game Week 35. Now, imagine if that happens for the City match, it will likely happen for the Palace match as well. So that would create a double game week in Game Week 35 if that happens, but we still have to wait for official confirmation. All other teams in the Prem will have just 4 fixtures remaining from now until the end of the season. Some other things that could change would be Bournemouth and Wolves. So that would be the opponents of City and Palace. They could double in 35 or have their match moved in Game Week 36 because of the FA Cup final. So potential double for them in Game Week 35. That would, though, lead to them having a blank in Game Week 36 if that was the case. Although those teams do have those extra fixtures, we are seeing a fair bit of rotation now. So, for example, if City and Palace end up having 5 fixtures or will have 5 fixtures compared to other teams' 4 fixtures now, there's nothing to say that City or Palace wouldn't rotate or rest players in the Premier League match before the final, which would basically essentially knock them down to 4 fixtures themselves anyway. So that is something to consider. And obviously the likes of the European sides, we're probably going to keep seeing those guys rotate heavily before the semi-final and probably before the final if they get there. So that's why I still think it's worth keeping an eye on some of these single game week sides with 4 fixtures remaining. Villa are one I quite like the look of. So looking at the fixture ticker from FF Stuff, they've still got Fulham and Bournemouth up next, but then Spurs and the United fixtures are in and around Game Week 36, that Europa League final. So if you look at Aston Villa now, in Game Week 36, they've currently got Spurs. Now, if they play Spurs the match before Spurs are in the Europa League final, I'd imagine Spurs are going to fully rotate their side for that Villa game. So that could make Villa a nice option for that game week. And even the week after, if it is a Spurs United final and United end up playing a Europa League final, maybe it goes 120 minutes and then Villa gets to play them the week after, or I think it'd be like a 4-day gap potentially. You'd fancy Villa in that one as well. So I do think Villa could be nice just with singles. Everton, now, I feel like it's quite hard to choose options from Everton, but they do have Ipswich and Southampton still to play. 2 teams that we have normally been targeting with quite a bit of success as well. Wolves, 6 wins in a row. They've got City up next, though, which isn't ideal, but you'd still think that their fixtures look quite nice. Brighton, Palace, possibly before the FA Cup, and then Brentford. The double could still be announced for Wolves, like I said, if that Crystal Palace match gets moved forward a week. So it could be a Brighton Crystal Palace double game week. In that case, I think Wolves players will look quite tempting. And then Brentford, so they could be up against a rotated Manchester United side this week. So it'd be Man United at home. And then they have Ipswich away from home the week after. So again, that will be an appealing one to target. And then Fulham, Wolves to end the season. I think Brentford could also be a nice team to target. They are playing this evening, so we'll get another look at them against Nottingham Forest, though still. Forest still chasing in the Champions League battle. They've got Palace, Leicester, West Ham and Chelsea. Again, playing this evening, so we'll wait and see how they get on. I know a few people waiting for Chris Wood, and so far it's been a little bit disappointing, but there's no reason to say he won't be an option. Maybe not for Palace, but the week after, Leicester at home, I still think that will be a really nice fixture to target for Nottingham Forest. Let me know in the comments below if you're still chasing those double game weeks or if you're going rogue now till the end of the season and starting to pick out some of those single game week sides. Let's kick things off with my team, Arsenal. So it was a really disappointing loss last night against Paris Saint-Germain. I was at the game yesterday and I was feeling quite optimistic actually before the game, but all of that optimism was sucked out of me within 4 minutes when Dembele scored that really impressive goal. And actually, PSG were brilliant in the game, so I can't really have many complaints, but I did come away feeling quite disappointed by the performance that Arsenal put in. No weekend fixture for Arsenal last week, so we had the time to prepare for this game as well. But PSG, just too good on the night. They've already done a number on Villa. They've already done a number on Liverpool. Hopefully, we can turn things around in the second leg. So Arsenal fixture-wise, still got 5 fixtures guaranteed and a possible 6th if they do turn around that 1-0 deficit at the Parc des Princes. So expecting rotation in this Bournemouth match now. So it's still all to do in that second match. I would be very surprised if we don't rotate heavily before it. Away from home as well. Timber looked like he possibly could have picked up an injury towards the end of the game. He got substituted for Ben White, and I don't want to turn this into an Arsenal pod because I always run the risk when I do these Arsenal slides. But for Ben White on for Timber to be like the first substitution you make when you are trying to chase a game in the Champions League knockout stages, it was quite disappointing. But we saw the bench warming up, and there's really nothing to choose from apart from Ethan Ranieri. Wasn't really much on the bench to really bring on. Ranieri came on in the 91st minute, which, again, I thought he could have come on much, much earlier. Maybe for Odegaard, who was completely missing in the game. So let's have a look at who I think could get rotated for the match. Again, I think Raya, safe option. Kivior and Saliba, he doesn't seem to like swapping those guys around in the league, trying to still build on that partnership. I think Timber, Lewis Skelly probably could be rotated. I think Rice probably ends up playing again, and he's done really well again in this fixture. Come away with 6 points, really close to getting 3 bonus. So always seems to perform really well on Dream Team. I think Marino or Odegaard could both be rested. I'd like to see Marino back in his centre forward position at PSG away now that Partey will be back in the team. But Bukayo Saka, he's the one that we really want to know what's going to happen with him. So 4 attacking returns in his 8 matches since coming back from injury. I have a feeling that he will be benched for the Bournemouth match. I know we are trying to build his minutes up, but this is the game now. It's all or nothing for this PSG away from home match. I wouldn't be surprised now if he starts on the bench and comes on for like the final 30 minutes. One thing to be worried about as well is that Arsenal have done pretty poorly in the matches either side of the European fixtures. So that Everton match where we drew 1-1 and the Brentford match where we drew 1-1 as well. Both fairly disappointing matches. So I would not be surprised if we had a similar outcome for this Bournemouth match. Declan Rice, I still think he's a fine hold if you've got him in your team already. And well, I didn't mention on Saka, but I'd be definitely still holding Saka. But it is something to consider. It will be most likely a PSG away single, I think. And then after that, Liverpool away, Newcastle home. Not ideal. And then game at 37, Southampton away. That is obviously one that you are going to want him for. Declan Rice, 4.9 million. So, like I said, really, really good performance, dream team wise last night. Had to play in that more defensive position, but still came with 5 tackles, big chance created, bonus points, and 6 points overall. So, done pretty well. He's had his most productive season now, 7 goals, 10 assists for the season. Obviously, still got those set pieces too. So, I'd be holding on to Declan Rice if you had him. But I do think there's probably better options if you wanted to target someone this week. Defensively, Saliba, Raya, Kivior, safest again. I still think Timber could be a rotation risk, and especially now there are some doubts that he might have picked up an injury in that PSG home match. Let's have a look at Man United. So they've still got a European match to take place tomorrow. Recording this on Wednesday evening. So 5 fixtures with 6 if they make the European final in Gameweek 36. They rescued the result against Bournemouth, but again, it was a pretty dull one from Manchester United. But Bilbao Thursday, we'll get another look at them, see how we feel. Bruno Fernandes, I think he's just going to stay in everyone's team now from now until the end of the season. 17 goals, 18 assists. He did have the biggest share of the captaincy this game week. Come on with 5 points. He was on 6 and then was docked a point. I just like having him in my team because if you do want a double game week captain, I think he's relatively safe. 5 points wasn't great, but it feels like a nice platform going into the Bilbao match. So Bruno won't be going anywhere for me, and he will be a captaincy shout again next game week, I think. Garnacho, 3.3 million, so 12 consecutive starts now in a row. The most shots on target out of all the midfielders. And I think he could be a nice differential if you're trying to mix things up in your mini leagues. But I do worry that it doesn't quite score enough goals for you to get those massive returns. I think Mazraoui, Dorgu, probably options in defence with that Dalot injury. We did see Luke Shaw come back for the Bournemouth game, but I just couldn't say with any sort of certainty that he'll be able to last playing twice a week or even once a week with his injury record. So I probably would steer clear of Luke Shaw. We've got a limited amount of transfers and you don't want to be wasting them on players that are injury prone. Spurs, so the same as Manchester United, 5 fixtures, 6 if they make the Europa final game at 36. Rotation and form is a concern, though, for them. So 5 losses in their last 6 Premier League matches. Lost 5-1 to Liverpool to hand them the Premier League title, although I don't think it was ever really in doubt there. Diaz, McAllister, Gakpo, even Salah ending his goal drought in this 5-1 battering of Spurs. Solanke did get on the score sheet, though. So Solanke, 10 points in this game. But overall, there was plenty of rotation again for Spurs. So they rotated their attack a little bit in the previous game and kept their sort of first choice defence. This time, up against Liverpool, what do? Yeah, you rotate your defence. So give them a free hit there. So it was Porro, Romero, and Van der Ven all rested for this game. Vicario stayed, Udogie stayed, but it was a pretty rotated back line. So again, I don't think we can really say with any sort of certainty when they're playing twice a week who's definitely going to start twice. But Pedro Porro, we said it last episode that he was likely going to be benched for this one, but he's more than likely going to start tomorrow in Europa. And when he starts, he does really well. So possibly the best defensive pick on the game. Delivers even in defeats with bonus points and attack and returns. So I still got no problem if you want to go for Pedro Porro from now until the end of the season. James Maddison, I think probably would be the second best option at Spurs now if I was to pick another one. 11 goals, 14 assists for the season. He's grabbed another assist for that Solanke goal. 9th highest midfielder overall. And he did have a fair bit of time out injured as well. But he was subbed at half-time, obviously ahead of that European match. So none of these players are really going to be safe for 2 starts. Even if they do manage 2 starts, they're probably going to have a bit of reduced minutes anyway. And the same for Solanke. So 3.5 million, got his header, 10-point goal, but 13 goals, 10 assists for the season. Off early, 67 minutes, saved for the midweek game against Bodo Glimt. So again, it's either pick these players that don't have double game weeks and get 90 minutes potentially out of them, or you could maybe get 90 minutes plus 45 in Maddison's case, or plus 67 in Solanke's case. It's trying to weigh up whether or not you think it's worth it Personally, I'm not that interested in picking Spurs players at the minute. Then next up, Chelsea. So 5 fixtures for them, potentially 6 with the Europa Conference League final if they get past Eurogarden. They're playing them tomorrow, so we'll get to see what they're about. Tough fixtures though after that. So Liverpool at home in Gameweek 34. Tough game, and these games are must win still for Chelsea fighting for those Champions League positions. So I think it's going to be a tough game. Second one, home against Eurogarden. So I'm kind of feeling if Eurogarden are pretty pants in this game tomorrow, I think Chelsea players will still look good to target. But then you've got the other side. If they end up winning too much, could they just rotate in the second leg? So it's quite hard to weigh it up. It's the games after this that still worry me a little bit. So you've got Liverpool in the Prem. Game at 35, it's Newcastle away. They're also fighting for those positions. So that's going to be a real tough game. Game at 36, Manchester United at home. So that one's not as bad because that is the week of the Europa League final. So maybe there'll be a bit of rotation there for Manchester United against Chelsea. And then in game week 37, it's Nottingham Forest away from home. Another team that could still be battling it out for those Champions League places. So Chelsea have got it to play for themselves, but they're playing against a few sides that also have got a lot to play for at the minute. If I was to choose Chelsea player at the minute, it would probably be Mark Cucurella at 3.9 million. So he's a safe starter. Got multiple routes to points. He does occasionally get rested in Europe or rotated in Europe, but he has been coming on when he doesn't start. So I think he's a good shout. He got 12 points against Everton. So a really nice haul if you decided to go for him. So you got a bonus point, you got the clean sheet, you got 2 shots on target and 4 tackles. So that's what we want from the defenders, multiple routes for points. That way, if you do get your clean sheet white, you still have got a chance of coming away with something. Cole Palmer, 4.9. So I kind of regret making this move. Maybe I won't regret it tomorrow after the Europa Conference League match, but we'll come to my team at the end. But I made one sort of risky play at the weekend and took out a few highly owned players. And so I kind of felt like I needed to bring Palmer in as a little bit of a defensive move. And I sort of regretted it from the minute I did it, really. It felt like a bit of a coward's pick, but I went for it and he didn't deliver. So now gone 18 games without scoring. Will he ever score again? He's the 7th highest point scorer on the game. But there's just no denying now that if you were picking your players on form, he wouldn't really be an option. 3 points in that Everton match. He did get 7 ppm, so he was quite close to getting 3 bonus points. But now I need to decide, am I going to be keeping Cole Palmer or moving on? Let us know in the chat or in the comments if you are sticking with Cole Palmer or it's time to sell again if you've got him in your team. Enzo Fernandez, Jackson and Neto all did pretty well, even Madueke in this Everton match. So pretty much everyone apart from Cole Palmer. But I just can't say with any certainty will they feature in double game weeks. Enzo hasn't really been playing in Europe. Neto hasn't. And then Jackson, you'd imagine, probably is going to get rotated for Nkunku as well. So while they've all been doing well on occasions, I still think there's better picks elsewhere. Manchester City, so 2-0 win against Nottingham Forest. They have 5 fixtures confirmed from now until the end of the season. So they will have that FA Cup final in Game Week 36. But like I said, we don't know yet where that Bournemouth match is going to get moved to. Will it move to the midweek of 36 or will it come forward and be put in 35 alongside Southampton away alongside Southampton away. So it'll be a double game week of Southampton away and Bournemouth at home. So if that ends up being a double game week, these City players are going to be really interesting. Marmoush, 4.9 million. I was worried. I took him out last week and I was worried that he would deliver a haul. He did get an attack in return, but it wasn't quite a haul. So he's come away with 8 points, got an assist for the Vardiol goal. So Marmoush on set pieces, assisted from a corner. So that's 10 attacking returns in 17 games now since signing for Manchester City. So having a pretty productive time. But Haaland is close to returning. So he's back in training now. We have no idea whether he's going to be fit to feature like at the weekend or even anytime soon. But it is something that we do need to have in mind. Do you have the budget potentially if you do need to pivot and get Haaland back in? Or are you willing to just go against him now till the end of the season? So I'm going to consider it. I do think I could potentially go against Haaland now till the end of the season. But if game week 35 ends up being Southampton Bournemouth and we see Haaland on the bench or appear for that Wolves game this week, I don't think I could bear to go without Haaland against Southampton and Bournemouth in a double game week. So it's just something to keep an eye on. We have no confirmation yet, but could be a worry. Kevin De Bruyne 5.7. So he was benched for the Forest match and an unused sub. So I'm a Kevin De Bruyne owner and I was a little bit disappointed by that one. But the way I was kind of thinking of it is last week he had a double game week. I kind of thought that he might get a start and then it was possible that he could get rested for the second game and have a bench appearance. He did play both the matches, but then he was rested for this semi-final against Nottingham Forest. So I did think he'd played a big Wembley match, but if you look at it and think, I probably thought he would start 2 out of the 3. That is what happened, and I imagine he will start now against Wolves at home. So I do think, don't panic if you've got Kevin De Bruyne. I imagine he will start and could be quite explosive against Wolves. And then I don't really want to take any of my City players out right now with that chance of a double game week in Game Week 35. Vardiol 4.2. Now, I was getting a little bit fed up with him. He's been playing at centre-back, and it's really limited his attacking potential, but he's come up with a 6th goal of the season against Nottingham Forest, so header from a corner. 4th clean sheet in 6 games now for Vardiol as well, so can see a few more with this fixture run. Wolves, Southampton, Bournemouth, Fulham. I could see a few more clean sheets for City. And obviously that Palace FA Cup final put into game at 36 as well. So again, not a terrible fixture. I have actually wondered, now it's a little bit out there, but we haven't done much of it this season. Doubling up, tripling up on defenders, that could potentially be a differential. We're trying to pick out differential players, but maybe going for like a differential defense is an option because I think a lot of defenses look the same at the minute. I don't think a double up of Vardiol and Diaz sounds too bad. Diaz 3.3 million. He doesn't get those extra points really for attacking returns, tackles, bonus so much. But they have got a bit of a partnership going at the minute, both at centre back. The reason I would choose Diaz is because I think those fullback positions are being moved around a bit more. Obviously, O'Reilly's down as a midfielder as well. And I don't think I'd quite trust Rico Lewis, even though he did get 16 points this week. I don't mind the double up there. Vardiol and Diaz potentially to try and get some clean sheets. Crystal Palace. Now, I must say I was surprised at this result. 3-0 against Aston Villa. And now Palace are through to the FA Cup final. They'll have 5 fixtures with that final in game week 36. They're scheduled to play Wolves that weekend, so that will move. Just don't know where to at the moment. Potentially low could be a double in game week 35 if it's put there of Spurs and Wolves. So huge FA Cup win. Caught most by surprise, I think it's fair to say. Goal from Eze and a brace from Sarr. So we'll start with Eze, 4.8 million. Is actually 28% owned in the top 1K. So this could still be a differential in your mini leagues if you have a look around and your rivals haven't got him. Back-to-back goals now in a bit of form. I think people did have a little wobble when they were on him recently because he hasn't quite been hitting the same amount of bonuses he normally gets. He missed that pen as well, which was a little bit disappointing. But overall, I think if you've got him, you'd be fairly pleased over the last couple of weeks. 9 points in this Villa game. And I think he's a decent option now till the end of the season. So Forest at home, I think it's an okay fixture. We'll see how Forest do this evening. But then Spurs in game week 35 away from home. Now, Spurs seem like a nice team to target at the moment. And if that ends up being a double, that could be nice against Wolves. They do end the season with Liverpool away, which isn't ideal. But I think Eze, from now until the end of the season, could definitely be a nice hold. Munoz, I think he's in a lot of teams now, but still solid. 6 goals, 6 assists for the season, and the second highest tackle numbers. I think he's in most of our teams. But again, if you're mini leagues, someone hasn't got him, still think there could be a few clean sheets or attacking returns there. And Jean-Philippe Mateta, so he had a great game against Villa, 4.2 million, but also missing a pen. Nobody wants to put the pens away at the moment for Crystal Palace, so I couldn't tell you now who's going to take the next one, whether it's going to go back to Eze again, who knows, but he did grab an assist and come away with 4 points. in that game. 17 goals, 4 assists now for the season for Jean-Philippe Mateta. Now Brentford. So we're on to a few potential differentials. So Brian and Bumo, 4.8 million. Now, nothing has changed yet for Brentford and Bumo because they haven't played. They're playing this evening. Last he did was a 28-point haul in game week 32. He's the 5th highest scoring player on the game with 18 goals, 8 assists. So he's having a nice season and he's definitely someone that I'm interested in. So I had a successful punt this week and now I've got the taste for it a little bit. Doesn't mean it's going to work again, but Mbumo does kind of tick a few boxes there for penalty taking, set piece taking. Does okay for bonus. He maxed out bonus in the last game, but he doesn't always do well for bonus. But the attacking returns are there as well for him. I've brought up from ffstuff.co.uk his points. There's a graphic on screen where it shows his points across all of the game weeks in a kind of bar chart. And actually, it's not as high as I would have expected. But one thing that he is consistent. So it doesn't really hit complete blanks with like 2-pointers or 1-pointers. There's 6, 9, 7, 5, 15, 5, 4, 7, 9. And then obviously that massive 28-pointer. So it does seem to have like a nice sort of floor of around sort of 5 points if he doesn't do too well. But I'm just looking at game week 34 when he has Manchester United at home, and Man United's thinking's probably going to be elsewhere, probably going to be on that Europa League match. And Brentford, they do it against the big side sometimes, and I quite fancy Brian and Bumo for this fixture. And then if you do get him in for this fixture, you've then got him in place for game week 35, where he has an away match against Ipswich. You can obviously bring him in just for that Ipswich game if you wanted to wait and see. But I am tempted to maybe go a little bit early and try and target that Manchester United match as well, just in case they rotate a few of their defenders. I think it could be a shout as a differential for game week 34. Aston Villa, so the opposite with Palace. They're out of the cup. I expected them to do really well in the FA Cup and possibly go to the final and give City a good game, but they're now out of the FA Cup, and I don't know what it is about Unai Emery. He's got this in him, so I do kind of feel like he got that Crystal Palace game very wrong, and obviously I feel like they should have done a bit better. I know it was an exciting game, but in Europe I feel like they could have done better as well. He sometimes just has these lineups that I don't feel are quite right, but who am I to judge Unai Emery? But anyway, out of the competitions now, disappointment against Palace. Spurs and Man United, though, feature in their last 4 matches. They face Fulham first in game at 34, a home match, so that is a tough fixture. And in game at 35 is Bournemouth away. But 36 and 37, Spurs and Man United, either side of that Europa League final, if they get there. I think that could be a decent enough time to target some Villa players. But I'm wondering now, with the news of Marcus Rashford's injury, could Ollie Watkins at 4.7 million be a nice player to target? So a lot of us went for Watkins earlier in the season when there was still a bit of uncertainty with John Duran, but Watkins was kind of the main man. But Rashford has come and taken his place over the recent period. And Ollie Watkins has been a little bit disappointing, but he's still on 16 goals, 14 assists for the season. And you'd have to think now for these final 4 matches, he's going to start all of them as Villa's number 9. So I think that he is a decent option and definitely will be a differential for this period. I think he's got good potential. We know he has got blanks in him, like against Crystal Palace, and a few times I know we've captained Watkins and he's let us down. But if you are chasing in your mini leagues, I think he could be a nice shout. He obviously had a decent return against Newcastle recently with his goal and assist, and then come on as a sub and change the game in that Southampton match where he won a penalty and scored a goal himself. So I do think Watkins could be a nice option. Morgan Rogers, now he's no surprises. He's having a great season, 14 goals, 14 assists, and he's played 50 matches now, and I'm pretty sure he started the bulk of all of those. The reason I'm bringing him up is because I took him out last week, and this is kind of the reason why. So I think if you're trying to consolidate in your mini leagues and your top position, or you're in the money places if you're playing for money, have Rodgers. See it out, block off your opponents. There's no reason not to have him. But if you are chasing, and I was chasing last week, I still am chasing, I want to go for someone different. And all season, it's been horrible to go against Morgan Rodgers because he plays every game, and Villa have had sort of 2 games a week for most of the season. But now they do just have 4 matches. And are there players that are better in standalone matches than Morgan Rodgers? I think there are. I think you can choose penalty takers, set piece takers. He still had a ton of attacking returns and is definitely very dangerous. But I do think he is someone that you could take on. Took him on last week. It went okay. It might not go so well this game week, but I do think you can take Morgan Rodgers on if you're chasing in your mini league. But 62% ownership currently in the top 1K. It will be a bit of a risk. And then Wolves this week. So 6 wins in a row. Had the 3-0 win against Leicester. And let us know if you went for any Wolves players. The 2 that come out flying this week were Ryan Atnori with a 17-pointer, 13 ppm, max bonus, and an assist. He's doing really well for attacking returns. So he's the highest scoring defender over the last 6 game weeks. And he's just got a ton of attacking threat. And then the main man, Matthias Cunha, the punt that I went for this game week, absolute mega haul. So a goal, 2 assists, 22 points, maximum bonus, 3 shots on target. The only thing he didn't manage was a tackle point or a big chance created point, but he's been fantastic. So 5 returns in his last 3 matches now. He's got the 3rd best average in the game, so 8.8 points per game. 17 goals, 7 assists. So let us know if you took that punt on Matthias Cunha. Have a little glow in the comments below. But now what do we do with him? With City away from home. So ideally, I don't think it's a great fixture for him. I was considering taking him out myself. But if they could potentially end up with a double in Gameweek 35 of Brighton and Palace, is it worth just keeping hold of him? I don't think he's going to completely blank. Even if I don't think he's going to score, I do think he could get bonus points, a few shots on target, something like that. He never seems to completely blank it. Even tackles, he could do all right for. So I don't think it's the end of the world if you do have to hold him. But if you don't have Cunha, I wouldn't be buying him now for the City fixture, personally. I'm not trying to gatekeep Cunha and keep him all to myself here. But City away is not a nice fixture to buy Cunha for, I don't think. If I didn't have Cunha, I would wait. And probably the same with Nori. If you was considering him, I would just wait now and go for it again in game week 35 with Brighton, Palace, and Brentford, the 3 matches after that. I think that would be the best play to target Wolves. Let's have a look at captaincy for game week 34. Now, I know I've skipped players and teams along the way just to keep this a little bit more streamlined. So if there's any questions you have on any other players that I haven't mentioned previously, just drop them in the comments below and I'll get back to you. Doubles this week. So Bruno, I think, is a nice captaincy shout again. I know it's boring. I know we've capped him a lot of times and we're not sure who to cap, but Brentford away, Atletico home. I think he'll probably play both. He's had his rest recently. I think he probably will end up playing both. Maybe gets reduced minutes in the Brentford game, but I think he'll start both of these games. 17 goals, 18 assists, and 42 bonus points for the season. He's a solid shout. If in doubt, go Bruno. Palmer, so 19% went for him last week for that Everton and Eurogarden match. And so far, you'd be feeling a little bit disappointed. Next week, I don't think it's great. Liverpool at home and then Eurogarden again at home, though, this time. We'll obviously get to see what they look like in Europe first. So if it does end up being a massive haul for him in that one, then maybe again it will be an option. But I do think if he disappoints in this European match on Thursday, I'd rule him out as a shout for captaincy. Bukayo Saka, so he would have a double as well of Bournemouth and PSG away. Now, if we knew for certain that he was going to start both, I think he'd probably be top of the list ahead of Bruno. But I've got my doubts about the PSG game. Played that full 90 yesterday against PSG. looked okay in glimpses. But PSG were very, very good. They were very good. I think although I'd seen PSG look good against Villa, and look good against Liverpool, I did honestly think that Arsenal would do quite well at home. But maybe that was my rose-tinted glasses. Saka only came with the 4 points. I didn't see enough from Arsenal or Saka yesterday to give me the confidence to cap Saka in an away game against PSG and in a match where I think that he could possibly be benched for Bournemouth. So it is a worry at the moment. I do sort of feel like Bruno Fernandes is probably the better option out of those 3 double game week options. Let me know if there's any other doublers you think could be a shout for this week. Single game week options. Marmoush, 7 goals, 3 assists now for the season. The letdown that he gave us recently, though, when we captained him, is still fresh in the mind. So a few of us will be scarred there, but I do think he could do well against Wolves. Ollie Watkins should be nailed for that home match against Fulham. So 16 goals, 14 assists. Not a bad option. And then if you think Spurs are going to heavily rotate ahead of their second leg in Europe, Bowen is an option. 10 goals, 10 assists. He's had 4 attacking returns in his last 4 games with 2 goals, 2 assists. At home against Spurs, I think that could be a nice differential too. I'd feel more comfortable, though, with Brian Mbeumo. Multiple routes to points, 18 goals, 18 assists for the season. It could be a similar scenario where Man United rotate, but obviously without seeing the lineups, we are just guessing. Or Isak. So Brighton have been pretty poor at the back recently. Isak's got 26 goals, 9 assists for the season. So again, could be a differential. These single game week players could still go off like we saw Cunha do in the last game. I don't think there's any real standout fixtures that were as good as they were last week with Isak, for example, or Cunha. If you've enjoyed that, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and again, drop any comments you've got below. This week, I've got 84 points for the game week. I've still got to play Palmer and Bruno Fernandes, so not many for me left to play. 4,135 points in total. And this week I've moved from 154th to 116th at the time of recording on Wednesday evening before Nottingham Forest Brentford. So quite a big jump. And the reason for that is the Matthias Cunha transfer in this week. So I did take out Omar Mamouche. He got 8 points. But the last time I took him out, I got a hat-trick. So I'm not going to worry too much about an assist. Cunha, who came in for him, though, got me 22 points this game week. In a move that's a bit unlike me, really. I do always tend to target the fixtures, but last episode, I just had a feeling that these doubles aren't quite what they seem now, and it might be that way from now to the end of the season. It might just be a one-off. Maybe from now on, the double game week players start doing really well, and the single game week players maybe not so much, but I've got a feeling this is going to be a pattern now, from now to the end of the season. Probably not as drastic as 22 points for Cunha, but I think there are some single game week players that we should be considering. Rodgers was the other transfer that I took out. So 2 points for Morgan Rodgers this week. And I took him out for Cole Palmer. And I'm a little bit ashamed of that Cole Palmer transfer, to be honest with you. It was a defensive play. Where I bought in Cunha, I felt like I had to kind of balance things out. So I've gone for a single game week player, big risk, high upside. And then I felt like I needed to balance that out with a player that had a potential 2 fixtures, a player that was going to be quite highly owned, and just a defensive play, really. And he's come away with 1 more point than Rodgers. Still has got that game to go, and maybe he will surprise us in Europe. But again, I'm not feeling that happy about that one. But it's hard to be annoyed when you did get that Cunha punt. So, like I said, still not against targeting single game week players due to that rotation. I've got Alisson in goal, 3 points this week. So, didn't keep the clean sheet against Spurs. Let him get that early goal just to give him something to cheer. But I think I'm just going to keep Alisson now in my team. I could obviously swap him to a David Breyer, Onana and Vicario. Do I really want to go there? No. So it could just be likely that I keep Allison now to the end of the season. Saliba, 2 points yesterday. I think he had a pretty good game overall, but that early clean sheet wiped out by Dembele. Munoz, clean sheet, 7 points, and Vardio, 14 points with the goal from centre-back. So pretty good showing from those two, Munoz and Vardio. Palmer, 3 points, hopefully get something else. Bruno was my captain this week, and I don't think I ever really thought about going against it. I would have, in hindsight, liked the Cunha captaincy, but again, I'd already made a risky play of taking Rodgers out, brought Palmer in to sort of mitigate a bit of risk. And I thought going for Cunha captaincy was just a bit too much risk. So I was pretty much always set on Bruno Fernandes. De Bruyne did not play. Like I said, disappointing, but I still think they probably will now play Wolves. And there's a double game week potentially on the horizon. Saka, 4. Cunha, 22. Isak, 9 points. And Salah finally grabbed a goal with 10 points. So let's have a look at how I'm feeling about this team at the minute. So I've got Vardio and De Bruyne that will have fixtures to be moved potentially with that FA Cup final, and Munoz also in that FA Cup final. So those 3 players are in the FA Cup final and will need a fixture rearranged. And Palace play Wolves that week. So Cunha also is in the mix to have a fixture moved somewhere. So at the minute, I kind of feel like those 4, I want to keep in place until we get a little bit more information. I've said I'm fine keeping Allison. Saliba, I've not been entirely happy with. The fixtures do start to get a bit tougher now. But I do think he plays the double next week, so probably going to keep him in place. Palmer, shame, but probably stays. We'll have to wait and see how he does against Eurogarden. And I think Bruno Fernandes is just going to stay now till the end of the season for me. So, what do we do with the rest of these players? Saka, Cunha, Isak, and Salah. So, Palmer, if he has no involvement in Europe and he really is terrible, maybe I do just take him out of the team. But for now, I think he's going to stay. Isak, I think Brighton is an okay fixture. But then it's Chelsea and Arsenal. I think their fixtures, they could potentially be moved on from. But for now, I think he stays for Brighton. Salah, Chelsea, Arsenal, Brighton next. So I'm looking at these singles, and I don't think that I'll captain him for any of them. Chelsea, Arsenal, or Brighton. So it wouldn't be the end of the world if I was to go against him. We know it's Salah. We know he's got a big haul in him, but he has only scored that 1 goal in 6 matches now. I guess it's down to whether you think that Liverpool might down tools a little bit. I think they could. And I don't really like this Chelsea fixture for them. Chelsea still got loads to play for as well. So I think Salah could be a consideration to sell potentially. Does come with a lot of risk. And again, if you're leading your mini leagues, I wouldn't recommend it. But if you're chasing, if there's people that are scared to take him out, it could be a way of going different. And then Saka. So I don't think I will take him out, but I do think he only is going to start that PSG away game. And then after PSG, the Arsenal fixtures do get a bit tough as well. We've got Newcastle and Liverpool both coming up. Tough fixtures. It'll be Liverpool in game week 35, Newcastle in game week 36, but then we're going to want him for game week 37, Southampton. So I think he stays for now, but again, could be somewhere to go a little bit different. And then Cunha. So I think City away, tough fixture. Could sell him and buy him back again. But overall, I think I might just keep him, especially if we hear that there's a double game week in 35 for him. So at the moment, it's a tough decision. Who goes out of this front 7? Let's have a look at who could come in. So this list is a little bit smaller. Again, this depends on tonight's game, I think. But Brian Mbeumo really is interested in me. United and Ipswich in the next 2. United potentially rotating and Ipswich just being Ipswich, I think could be good fixtures for him. And then I think I'm going to want Marmoush back. Now, I know there is that looming shadow of Erling Haaland who could be coming back into the team. And Marmoush has played a ton of games, so maybe that there is a rest there for him somewhere. But I would like to get him in, and especially if there is a double game week coming for him. So I think Mbeumo and Marmoush are the 2 that I'm looking at the most at the minute. The hard decision is coming with who I'm going to take out. So I'm going to have to wait and see how Bruno gets on in Europe, how Palmer gets on in Europe. But I do feel like they're the two that I might be bringing in this game week. It's a Friday deadline, so we will have a deadline stream Friday evening. I guess that's going to be 5:30 till 6:30 for that early deadline. So do come and tune into that one. It'll either be on my channel or Dream Team Tonic. It'll still be to be confirmed. Do check out our latest episode of the Dream Team Tonic podcast. We had James back on the show, familiar face who you mostly all know at this point. So do check that one out. There'll be a link in the description below for that. And as always, drop any comments. I will get back to you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.